Thanks everybody for joining the last UK talk in our monthly series. Sirisha is a Java developer here at Mindera, and she's going to be talking about new features in Java 17. So over to you, Sirisha.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Okay, so as I have already mentioned, we were talking about the JDK 17 new features. So initially, I would like to just say an outline of the release cadence, which was changed recently from JDK 10. Like Java has decided to add new features for every 6 months, and for every 6 months, we will be having a new release. Why I was talking about JDK 17 is that is the LTS release after JDK 11. So long-term support release, so that we'll be getting more new features to that, and also from this JDK 17, we were also getting some free license so that we can now use it JDK freely. Like till now, since JDK 11, it was a paid version to use it in production. But now in production, we can use it freely, but that too for 3 years, 2 years, and overlapping with next LTS release actually. So, and the Java people, Oracle has also decided to give new LTS releases. Till now, it was like a 3 years gap since JDK 11. After 3 years, we got the JDK 17 LTS. Now it is like after 2 years, we'll be getting the next LTS release, that is JDK 21. So, and recently on March 22nd, we also got the new release JDK 18. With some preview features which are already there in JDK 17. So, but today in this talk, I will be concentrating more on JDK 17, what are all the new features. So let's get into that. So I just took up few features since JDK 8, some noticeable things. From language features point, it's whichever developers who will be getting in touch with that, and the libraries. Before going to the language features, I will touch deeply with the language features with some code basis. So I will just explain the libraries one first, from the libraries since JDK 8 and JDK 11, we also got the new client API, like HTTP client API from JDK itself. Till now, previously we used HTTP URL connection API, which only supported synchronous calls. But with this new invention API, it is supporting both synchronous and asynchronous calls, and it supports both the HTTP and HTTPS versions, both to 1 and 2 protocols. One might think why we need to use HTTP client, because till now, I think everyone will be using the external libraries like Jetty or Apache HTTP clients in our projects. So now it's time to use the HTTP client, which is provided by JDK itself. Only some few features maybe while calling to the endpoints, uploading forms, files, that is not yet been provided with this API. We can maybe expect that in future from this API point of view. And that is the one thing. And the other library is Stackwalker. This library is usually whenever we got exceptions in our applications, we might get the whole stack trace, which might be or might not be useful for us. So from this API, we can just mention in our application okay, I am just interested in these classes. I just want these classes. If I get an exception, can you just show me the classes which are stack trace which are having these classes only, so that we can just provide the list of classes and it will just show those classes only in the stack traces. Mostly the main concept for this API is for the better resource consumption, for better resource utilization in our application. If suppose in production, if we get so many exceptions, it will the logs will keep on adding on and the stack traces will keep on adding on. So this might be useful for us, that one. Then the other one is enhanced pseudo random number generators. Previously, we also have this interface, pseudo random number generator, for generating the random numbers. But it's now adding few other implementations. It has provided the JDK capacity by adding different algorithm IDs. So we can just pass in the algorithm ID for that pseudo random number generator interface. We will be getting the random numbers. And the other one is context specific deserialization filters. This is also mostly useful for the developers which they want to add validations for any while deserializing the serialized data. So we can add validations, like if some data is coming from any untrusted sources. So by adding these filters on a JVM level, we might exclude the security vulnerabilities actually. So we can add it like it was providing some filters, we can add it on a JVM level. So we can add in the validations of our incoming data, so that mostly useful for security point of view. So that is from the library's point of view. And the other one, some other noticeable things are like the one is garbage collectors, ZCC improvements. Since ZDK 11, we have these GC improvements a lot, and since till ZDK 17, we have these improvements who have improved a lot, because it is mainly for the better performance issue from application point of view. Usually, like whenever GC wants to do the cleanup on the garbage collector, wants to clean up our objects in our application, it will provide some pauses, like some pauses will be happening, which will be affecting the request processing time and giving a high latency to our applications usually. But with this GC improvement, ZCC improvement, this is a new ZC collector. It is like it will perform concurrently, and then it doesn't depend on the number of threads or number of objects on the number of memory. Like it will just do its process. So till now, since JDK 17, the highest maximum allowed latency is 10 milliseconds it was, but now it was 1 milliseconds in JDK 17. So we can say that latency problem from the GC is totally solved now. So whoever is trying to improve the GC improvements from the application point of view, it's better to shift from JDK 11 to 17. So totally that problem is solved. Maybe from memory side, you need to see anything if something is happening, but there is not at all a problem from the GC side. Now it is totally low latency. So that is one of the things. And the other one is helpful null pointer exceptions. Like till now, whenever we used to get, we are very common, every developer will see this null pointer exception in our code base. And till now, we used to see in which line we got this null pointer exception. So, but if that line is having a condition, if very small, then it is fine, we can see what is causing exactly. But if that condition is having multiple classes conditions with multiple fields, then it might be a headache for one to see which one is causing the exact null pointer exception. It is like a headache for us. So now the ZDK is providing us like, yeah, this is the class and this is the field you were trying to access, which is throwing the null pointer. So we can directly jump in and see, okay, this is the one which is causing the null pointer exception. So that is the one of the best feature. And the other one is like, so since like ZDK 9 or previous versions, Java Oracle is trying to replicate so many features which are not in use. And then like if some code is sitting along beside, it might be one of the input for hackers to do something on that code. So that's why they have decided to replicate features. And also that too, from ZDK 9, they have decided to deprecate for removal equals to true. That means like if it is deprecated, they were telling us don't use it. But if it is deprecated for removal, then don't use it. It will be removed in future. They were telling like this, so don't use at all. So two noticeable things are like applet API and finalize are deprecated. So I just mentioned applet API because as a fresher or as a learner in my bachelor's, I started my project with applet API. So now I thought we shouldn't be using applet API now. Anyways, it was replaced and we are using a lot of different JSPs, HTMLs in the replacement for that. And so now it is deprecated for removal, don't use it. And the other one is the finalize method. This finalize method is like it will be used to it will be called by the garbage collector when the garbage collector wants to clean up the data. So before that, so by using it is there since Java version 1, but it's like by using this finalize of method, the application, from the application point of view, we are getting so many performance issues and so many race conditions, and sometimes applications are also keeps on hanging on. I think everyone are using this finalize of method. It's better not to use it because in reality, the garbage collector is totally depending on the Java virtual JVM environment and the system environment, which are totally out of hand in our concept. And there is another concept, like usually we can also create an object in finalize of method. If such thing is there, then totally that object will be residing in the heap space forever. Garbage collector cannot do anything for that. So for all these conditions, Oracle have decided to deprecate this method totally. Now in JDK 18, the latest release, it was now deprecated for removal true. Previously, they were telling it is deprecated, but for removal true is like for sure in the next version, it will be released, it will be removed. So maybe instead of using, because everyone is habituated using the finalize of method, we can just use it, any auto closable features like using the try with resource functionalities. So trying and opening our resources with the try block, and then JVM will by default, it will close the resource by itself. We don't need to explicitly specify it. And or also we also have some external libraries provided by Java too, like a cleaner API. It will also do the same thing as finalize. We need to do some extra logic from our code base. That is one thing. And the other one is launching a single file source code. It is not for the experienced one who knows all in and out. It's for the one who is learning and who has started a single Java program. Usually the one who is initially starting to learn a Java program, it's like a big thing for them. Like they need to check whether the class name and file name, everything to be same to run the Java file. So all these conditions, so need to compile the code and then provide that class file name if you want to run the Java file. Like that is there till now. But now from JDK 17, you can just run a single file with Java file name.java. By default, Java will take the interpreter, it will run the interpreter and take the in-memory object, in-memory class file, and then run it by itself. Just Java file name.java is enough to run now. I want to add one more thing from here, because since JDK 18 was also released, in the JDK 17 also we have one preview feature like simple web server by Java. It was provided, a web server was provided by the Java people, like from Oracle. We can run that simple web server for just for testing and learning purpose, just with the command of JWeb server, it will run a web server. So to run any of our HTML static files, it is useful now. That is now it is in preview feature in 17 and 18. Maybe in future it will be standardized. So these are the things I want to mention it. Next, I would like to discuss on the language features. Like mostly the developers will be using that one. So the language features, the first one is the type inference. It is like using the var keyword. Usually like this var keyword is there in JavaScript, like in other different scripting languages already. Maybe Oracle have decided all the people are having, why Java won't be having. So they have decided to add this feature again. And it's not again, they have decided to add it. So it's like adding the var keyword, var keyword data and new array list of. So previously it's like we need to specify the type of the data herely while declaration. So but now we can just use it var. So based on the type which was assigned right side to this line, it will be decided like what type that need to be assigned to this variable. So here it is new array list of string. So the compiler will find like and will take like, okay, this is the new array list, then it will assign that array list type to this data. So we can just specify the var keyword, that's all. And also like it will be useful in some cases, like if for suppose usually in our projects, some classes will be having a long names. In such cases, like for suppose here database adapter implementation, why we need to specify that class name here again, because to the right side we were telling it is an object of type this database adapter implementation. So just to specify where, that's all. You by default, okay, it will create the object. This is of type this class name. So only for this purpose it was there. So for this, usually whenever we are using, we should be initializing the data. So every time the initializer should be there, and we can't use it in the local variables in the class. We can't use it in the class. It should be local variables for the methods or functions. And use only when needed is like, I prefer like if for suppose we have another keyword like int data equals to 1. So in that case, we can just use int instead of var because both are 3 characters. It's not like a specification we need to follow it. So this is regarding type inference. Okay, and the next one is records. This is the main feature that was having future enhancements at all fully totally, and we need to be concentrating in every developer because we should be using this feature in future. So records are like data classes. It's like usually whenever we are coding, we have the plain old Java objects. So every class file, the Pojo classes, every class file is having the fields like the whatever the fields that for that class file and the constructor and the accessor methods, and then by default equals hash code and toString methods. So every developer used to write this whole thing for all classes and for many classes. So now the records has came into picture to just avoid this boilerplate code. So just writing this single line will replace this whole thing. So just this simply added the record keyword and the class name, and these are the binding parameters. What are the fields that we want to specify? Just this single line. By default, JDK will add in the constructor, the accessor methods, the equals hash code of method, and this toString of method. So usually like whenever previously we used to access it by just get of method, but here in the record we need to access it by the name field itself, because for suppose rectangle, if you want to get the length, rectangle object dot length of, if you want to get the width, rectangle object dot width of, will be getting that getter parameter. And the records are final. Those are immutable, and we can't extend any other classes to the records class because this record is already like implicitly is extending some other record class from the java.language library, and we can implement as many interfaces as needed. If suppose if you want add any validation to your class apart from this common constructor, you can add another constructor, canonical constructor, and then in that constructor you can specify whatever validation you want to. If you feel that the code is repeating, then you can also add a compact constructor. Just remove these two lines and add the validation, so it will take care of that. Adding this, it will execute both things. So one might think again why we need to shift to records, because we are already using Lombok third-party library. I can say like using the records, we have so many features which were not provided by the Lombok. One thing is like with the records in future, we have some enhancements. I will be telling in that one, because like some pattern matching algorithms, like new feature with that records also. It is like some deconstruction pattern matching. That is one thing in future we'll be getting. So we will be taking advantage of that if we use records instead of Lombok. And the other thing is like, so till now Java is having some one, I can't say it is a bug, like while deserializing, whenever the validation whichever is adding in the constructor, that is not being executing till now. It was taking the super class constructor itself only, like till now. But with records, for sure, whatever the validation we will be adding in the canonical constructor, that will be executed. So while deserializing, that validation will be happening for whatever the objects we are getting it. So that is the one of the big advantage we will be having with the records. So whatever which was in the Java past, that is now rectified with the records class. So that's all from the records. So then next is like sealed classes. Sealed classes are like mostly came into picture for domain modeling, like for closed hierarchy. That means like we can specify the interface, which classes can implement our interface. Like till now we have abstract classes which can have many subclasses, whereas we can have a final class which can't have any subclass. But there is no intermediate class which we will be providing. Okay, this class can be extended by this one, this class can be implemented by this one, like that. So this has came into the picture for that. So we can just sealed interface or sealed classes, you can use it anywhere else. Sealed is like we are just telling, okay, this interface will be used by the other classes. It's like maintaining a closed hierarchy. So this is the total package or total module system. No one should be accessing, or it is like a closed hierarchy. So like that, for the main purpose, that is the main purpose. So usually like for the interface we used to specify sealed, and then we will provide permits, whichever the class we want to give the permission for this interface, we will be specifying here, like permits, square, rectangle, random shape. These are the classes I was creating. So for these three classes, I'm giving permission to implement for implementation. So can be accessible, the records are by default final. And then if if it is in the same class file, we don't need to mention final or like that. But if it is in different class files, usually every class will be in different class files. So at that time, we should be mentioning, or we should be specifying those classes with the final, sealed, or non-sealed. Usually, why we are providing final? Because interface is sealed by default, it is final. Final, and then providing the final to the classes files. It's like we are closing the hierarchy. No other classes can extend this final class. It is the same way with the sealed. No other class can extend this random shape. And if you want to intentionally want to give a class to be extended by other class, then you can open it. Then you can specify non-sealed. Then in that case, this class can be extended by the other classes. It's like, okay, I'm telling, okay, I don't want to follow the closed hierarchy, I'm opening it, you can extend it, whatever it is. It is not recommended one using the non-sealed one, but if you want, if our project wants to use that one, you can go on with that. So that is the main purpose. And one more feature is like using this sealed class. We have one more feature in switch expressions actually. So by just saying, we can see here like this sealed interface shape is permitting access to these three classes. That means like if suppose in switch expression, I was writing some cases. If something I have handled this square case, I have handled the rectangle case, but I haven't handled the random shapes case. Then at that time, this sealed class and the switch expression will be correlating, and the switch expression will tell us, you haven't handled the random shape, you try to handle it. So it is like very much usage, and they will correlate by itself and by ourselves. Okay, at that time I can able to say, okay, I haven't handled, I need to handle it. So this is one of the main advantage using sealed class. And okay, so this is the next one is switch expressions. So previously we have switch statements, and now it is switch expressions. Why statement and expressions? So usually the statements are like we can provide the string, any integer or any enums, and based on the case we will do something by providing some breaks like that. So but we can't return anything in the switch statements, whereas in switch expressions we can, it's not only based on the string, integer, or like that. It can be based on many other cases, based on expressions, and then it can return a value. Expressions is like it can return a value, one thing, and it is more readable when compared to switch statements, and we don't need to specify the break at all. We don't need to concentrate much on the break at all. And then you can just provide this arrow and give it, so it will return by itself. And also I mentioned, right, sealed class, if we have the pattern matching for switch expressions too, that means in the future, it is now in preview feature in JDK 17 and 18. So it's like if suppose I was checking case some rectangle is instance of shape and circle is instance of shape, like that. So based on the object, it will search for that, and it will do that whatever the logic that we want to do. So that is the pattern matching in switch expression. So in this case, if we just specify only rectangle and circle, and if we forgot some other square shape, then it will throw here like you forgot the square shape, you need to handle that one. So in that case, we don't need to mention default at all. By default, the switch will tell all the cases that you have handled that. Okay, fine, you have handled everything. It's better to mention not default, because in future, if you add some other case to that interface directly, then switch will throw you a one more interface have permitted to other class. You need to add that one also here. Okay, so it is like that. Switch expressions has gone into so much many functionalities like that. So this is one of the I mean to say, like the flow. And we can also specify colon and yield. The syntactic wise, both will be same. But if you want to do some block big functionality and then return it, in that case we will be using the yield keyword, yield and return value, by just opening the block braces in the switch expressions. So automatic breaks I have covered, and multiple match. Okay, so case when Monday, Friday, Sunday, then you need to do something like this. So for multiple matches also it was supporting now. So that is all for switch expressions. Then I will go on with the text blocks. Okay, text blocks are like mostly for the developer, for making or for better readability. Like usually, I personally felt it is very good feature, because whenever we write some unit tests, we will sometimes provide some mock responses, JSON responses. So while providing the response in the code itself, it is like we need to escape all the characters. And if you see here, the upper line, this is like passed in Java before text blocks. We will be using like this to just give a mock response. This is the JSON response. It is not readable at all. But now after these text blocks, it is totally readable. You can just add 3 quotes and the JSON file. See, you don't need to escape any characters while just providing this one, and then the triple quotes here. That's all. So by default, you can just, by seeing itself, we will be able to know, okay, this is the one, this is the JSON with 2 things. It's the same to strings also. It has the smart indentation also. Usually like any IDE will be having the left indentation, so it won't take that indentation into consideration. But if you want to add any space before that, after that indentation, if suppose if you add any space here, then that space will be taken into consideration, and then that string or whatever the text block, it will take it. And else, if there is any trailing white space, like if there is any white spaces at the end of the lines, then it will remove that white spaces. If you want that white spaces to be also included, then you can preserve it by just adding the /s. For suppose there is a white space here and I will add /s here, then it will just give that white space in the text blocks. So on these text blocks, we can use the functions like replace of. You can replace it anything, and also you can use formatted, like a formatted of. For suppose this, I want to pass it some value, and that value be replaced by some percentages in the text blocks. It will do that purpose. Okay, so mainly for the developer, making easier life for more readable thing. It has come into picture, the text blocks. And okay, the next one is pattern matching. For instance of, this is the main feature since JDK 7. In JDK 17, it was now the feature, we can use it. And we also have so many features in the future. So this pattern matching is like, it's like smart casting. So if you see, I will show with an example. I have a method. Here I'm checking with the shape is instance of rectangle. Okay, if it is an instance of rectangle, then I'm just making I was like casting that object to the rectangle, and then I was I was just calculating the perimeter. So this casting, usually like we were telling the compiler to cast it, but now we don't need to tell the compiler is intelligent enough to find out, yeah, this is a rectangle object. See here, so shape is instance of rectangle R, then by default the compiler will find out, yeah, this is an instance of rectangle. If it is an instance of the rectangle, then it will create an object, and this is the R object. So by default it will create an object, and we can use it, that object, in the next block. It is like a local thing, so that scope will be, we can use it only there only, we can't use it outside of that scope. So it's like smart casting. We don't need to tell the compiler to cast it by ourselves. So it's like this is a simple example. In most complex scenarios, this casting might be become some error prone. We will be getting some errors too. So we don't need to specify anything like that. Just compiler will do that job itself. This is one of the pattern matching instance of this. Is this pattern matching is like a type pattern matching. That means it was checking the type of the object, and if it is the same type of, then it is creating that object. We also have one more pattern matching, that is deconstruction pattern matching. It is still in, it is not yet in the preview feature. Also in the future we will be expecting that feature. It is based on the records. If we get a record of type, if we get the record, if we get a record of type, and then this is the variable we got, I will directly get that variable and access it, and whatever I want to do it. That is a different case actually. And the other one is like the other, this is one more thing, one more pattern matching. It's like we were checking the instance of type pattern matching, and then if it is matching, then we were checking whether the length, if we want to check any other different conditions, then we can specify the length, and if it is matching, then only do whatever you want to do. Here, one more thing to notice is like we shouldn't be using or condition, because if it is not the if it is not the type of that object, then if you use or condition, then it won't, if it is not the type, then it won't be creating an object. Then with an or condition, it will throw a null pointer exception, because it won't be creating an object. So every time we should be using the and operator only. So pattern matching, it has so many features, like we should be expecting so many other enhancements also in the future, like regarding with the switch expressions too. I think that's all I have.
Wow, thank you for sharing that, Sirisha. That was really enlightening, especially for me, because I'm not technical. I'm an IT recruiter, as you know, from Mindera. So for me, that was super interesting, and I actually could follow some of what you were saying and understood. So for example, I know you said it was a simple example, but the pattern matching of instance of, I understood. I understood about the specification deserialization filter. So yeah, I'm learning some cool stuff. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
No questions. Just going to say, oh, sorry, I'll be quick because it's not a question to say no questions, but I thought it was really good. Yeah, thank you. I'll stop now.
Yeah, it was super useful for me. Thank you, Sirisha. I've been stuck in the world of Java 8 for so long, and it's always hard to find time to keep up with the new features. So I thought that was a great summary.
Yeah, congratulations also. I think we just want to start using it, so but probably we will have to wait, despite it is available. But I can throw a question. So regarding records, so if I understood correctly, we can both override and overload the constructor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and regarding the equals, for instance, are we able to override it also? Do you know it?
Yeah, we can override it.
Oh.
But usually there is no use to override it, because if you want to add one more field, by default it will add it.
Yeah, no, there's other use case. But first, I would like to make another question regarding the accessors. the getters don't have the get. We have to use. Why is that? Do you know? I'm just curious.
I think they have started the records as immutable feature, so we can't set the data to the records too, because if you just a getter, only the getter accesses that, or that's all. So if you want to set a data to a record, I think you need to create an object again if you want to add something in between for your object. So by default, it is immutable. They have started with immutable only.
So from curiosity, I can share a reason why equals we may want to override equals sometimes, and this happens also in Lombok, and it's good that you compare the records with Lombok because it's a problem. Not a problem, but it might start to be a problem with Lombok if we are not aware of it. So when we use Hibernate and we compare objects, an object we fetch from database, we change it, and then we fetch it again from database, and we can want to compare them. So we consider that it's the same identity if they have the same ID, if they have the same primary key. Normally we do that with equals, and if we use the extensive definition of equals comparing all the fields, they will always be different, the two objects, because one was changed, but in fact they are the same identity. And of course this depends on the practices of the team or the project, but normally equals is used to know if it is the same identity or not. So this concern that we have to take with Lombok, we also have to take with records. If we I don't remember, were we able to override equals?
Yeah, looks like we can override it.
Oh, okay. So we are safe on that.
I was just going to say, it seems like to me maybe the use case for using a record is, to avoid having to do that boilerplate code. So presumably if you did have to override equals, maybe you would just use a class. But if you can override it anyway, then I guess that works.
It's that, and to encourage to use immutability, which is a cause of a lot of problems, and we already tried to chase that with streams, and records are very, very good for streams also.
And any final questions or no? Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you very much again, Sirisha, for your talk.